Good morning and welcome to this meeting of the Resources and Transformation Overview and Scrutiny panel. I would like to extend a warm welcome to officers, members of the public and the press. I am Councillor Alan O'Sullivan, Chairman of the panel. For the benefit of those watching the meeting online, please would members introduce themselves during the meeting, if not already introduced by name. Please note that this meeting has been broadcast live on the Council's website and on YouTube. It will remain available for a minimum of 12 months. Please use your microphone and switch off once you have finished speaking. Please switch any mobile device to silent. If the fire alarm rings, please leave the room and use the nearest fire exit. Do not use the lift. Please go to the fire assembly point in the car park. Apologies.
Thank you, Chairman. We've received apologies from Councillor Barry Rickman with Councillor Alvin Reid as the substitute. We've also received apologies from Councillor Jackie England and Councillor Jack Davies, and apologies from Councillor Jill Cleary, who's the leader, and they will be substituted by Councillor Steve Davies, who is the deputy leader.
Thank you. Item 1 is minutes. Members, are we pleased to approve the minutes of the last meeting on the 22nd of January? Thank you. Any declarations of interest by members with regards to this meeting? No, thank you. No public participation. Item 4, corporate plan key performance data for quarter 3, 2025 to 26. SAC.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning. I'm Saqib Yassin. I'm Performance and Insight Manager. So today we'll be presenting panel with our corporate plan key performance indicator dashboards for quarter 3. That covers the period October 2025 to December 2025. Measure IDs 35 through to 48 only are for review this morning. In summary, I'd say the vacancies filled first time has dipped ever so just below the target. 18 of 25 vacancies were filled over the last quarter. The average number of sick days is consistent with quarter 2 figures and can be attributed to a small number of long-term sickness cases spanning over a longer period. Both council tax and rate collections perform consistently close to target profiles, and we expect those to be within target by the end of the year. 93% of annual ICT work programme is forecast to be delivered on time and within budget, being green rated throughout the year. Consequently, a more challenging target will be proposed for the new financial year. Critical system downtime remains under 1% and has been green for 4 quarters. The target has been updated this quarter to set a more challenging expectation, reducing from 5% to 3%. At the last panel, there was a request for further workforce information to help understand the impact of LGR and wider organisational pressures. While the corporate plan dashboard will remain unchanged, EMT agreed to incorporate a small set of relevant workforce information into this covering report. It should be noted that more detailed information is presented to HR committee as per their work programme. What we've seen is there's been a steady increase in a rolling count of long-term sickness over 12 months across December through to February. As has been reported, long-term sickness per FTE is a significant proportion of sickness days lost, despite the small increase in our establishment figures. Staff turnover has remained consistent at around 13%, and 13% was also the year-end position for 24-25. The target for this year is unchanged from last year at 11%. Over the last year, leaver destinations were recorded in 17 instances, and in fact, better prospects of career progression was the highest recorded reason for leaving. That being said, 83% of staff still rate NFDC highly as an employer, and 76% of staff do feel NFDC is of equal or better than their previous employer. And this has dropped ever so slightly from 81% if we look at data going back to 2023. The quarter 3 dashboard today will now have been presented to all 3 panels, and will be going forward onto Cabinet on the 1st of April. Happy to take any questions there. Thank you.
Thank you, Zach. I'll start off this with a question. I go to on the HR committee, so a lot of the members' questions about staff and that are already being presented in that committee, and I don't understand why we need to have it as a duplication through this committee with as much detail. I think if members want to know about that information, they can go to the HR committee minutes, which they all have access to. And perhaps two options is one, just to reduce your report to a very short, or take the KPIs out altogether, which is as they are duplicate based.
Sure, certainly. Thank you for the question. I can certainly build into my plan if panel members prefer to check for any updated data metrics at HR committee. So these are looped into the R&T panel as they become available. Either to provide a link directly to the HR committee papers or undertake some analysis as we've done this time. Happy to be directed by panel.
Thank you. Alan, first, Councillor Arvine.
Thank you. Yeah, I have a couple of questions on the ICT KPIs, in particular on 45 and 47. On 45, I'd like to know how and who measures this. I mean, and also the target seems ridiculously low, and I think needs to be looked at. And again, on 47, again, as you pointed out, I think in the report, the target seems very low. So I think we need to look at the ICT targets in general and come up with A, more demanding targets, and B, clarity on how they are measured. Thank you.
Thank you. I think, first of all, I'll just talk through how KPI 45 is measured. And this will be reported again at year end. The benefits are laid out as part of the work programme for the delivery, and the report usually comes back to panel in that regard. But each project will have a defined set of objectives, with this KPI monitoring yes or no on the plan to whether the benefit, the itemised benefit, a determination is made on whether that benefit has been realised. So those are then summarised by the service to provide the KPI. So it is a calculation of the benefits flagged as being realised over all benefits that are pending for each project. It is a quantitative measure. It's a calculated measure that links back to the original business case for each of these projects. A more detailed qualitative analysis will need to be taken place for each project at the appropriate stage, usually from project closure and beyond. That will ensure that benefits are sustained after formal closure and therefore remain embedded in any operating model. With regards to the targets, all of our targets for our measures will be formed as part of the annual target refresh, so we'll certainly take that away and look to set more challenging targets. With respect to the KPI 47 annual ICT work programme delivered on time and on budget, it should be noted that as projects develop, things change, and as we learn more in an exploratory phase of a project, for example, we then look to revise and amend our subsequent stages of the project to be more in line with what we need and the work programme that's needed to deliver them. So all of those projects, as things change, will go back to their respective boards to get a rebaseline. And so this measure is counting against the revised and updated baseline for each project. I hope that helps.
Can I just let Rebecca, do you want to come in there on that?
Yes, please, just to support that response. So in terms of benefits realisation, so the panel has had a more detailed reporting in the past around specific projects and the benefits, the objectives of those projects, the benefits realised against those objectives. So if that's something that the panel would like reported back again, then we can do that.
Thank you. Councillor Wade.
Alex Wade, Hive Central. Firstly, thank you for that reporting information. I disagree with the chairman in this case because I think with resources and transformation being so prevalent to this committee and reported each quarter, impacting on staff wellbeing, impact on future roles and responsibilities and what the staff are being asked to do, and the impact and uncertainty, I actually think it's quite prevalent, and I do think there are links and questions to some of the KPIs, such as how we're completing those roles at first time, what the turnaround of staff is, because it's all connected to LGR. Because if I worked for the council and I knew that there was going to be a change, that would be a consideration for me, wanting a bit of long-term job security, whatever may be. I just wanted to ask then, with the 18 out of 25 completed first time, are we receiving enough interest in these jobs or not at all? Or are these people not meeting the appropriate job spec? And do we know how we're comparing to other authorities when we have those LGR conversations? Is this not unique? Southampton, Eastleigh, Test Valley going through exactly the same scenario within existing staff? And the questionnaire, that feedback is good. But I'm curious, because I work for a public authority and I know the percent of people who complete it. Do we know what percentage of staff complete it? Because that's always an interesting sort of idea. Because if you can get over 50, over 60, that's fantastic. And I don't know how it's encouraged, but by management.
Thank you. So, just want to remind in my head now. First of all, with the vacancies filled first time, just to clarify, the measure counts the number that are filled first time. So, of course, the vacancy needs to be filled for us to derive from that the metric, how many of those were actually filled first time. So, it was 18 posts were filled, and of those, a proportion were filled first time. So that's how that metric works. And I don't have figures for other authorities. I do know that we still remain an attractive prospect for local authority workers. And so filling vacancies is always a challenge, and trying to attract the right and most suitable candidates. We do that. We work with industry best practice, and we'll go out to market to advertise and promote our vacancies. We use social media and so on. So we feel we attract the right candidates. But of course, sometimes that takes time, and that's hence that measure, because it's something we feel is really important. Thank you for appreciating the additional metrics. That's really helpful. Thank you. And sorry, just to take your last question, Councillor. Sorry, yes. To go back to the destinations of our leavers, it's derived from the leaver questionnaire that staff are offered at the point of leaving. Now, it does somewhat skew the figures because it's an optional thing. Should members of staff wish to take that up, we haven't done a wider exercise in trying to follow up and record a leaver destination for everyone who then moves on from the council. So hence, I would just exercise some caution around the results. But it's interesting that we've had a slight change in the results of the most recent outputs. Normally, we talk about people retiring and so on. So that has changed ever so slightly.
Thank you, Franklin.
Yeah, again, if I can just add to that. So I spoke to the HR team yesterday about leavers questionnaires and whether we can do any more to be even more proactive to encourage the take-up or even to capture the reasons. So as Zach said, there's a lot of work being done in that area. But what they did tell me, which is really useful for us to monitor, is they've now included a specific LGR reason for leaving. And there is, the team tell me that you can only select one reason. Anecdotally, we're hearing very little about LGR, but it is one that we need to monitor. So that specific reason will be very useful to monitor that trend in the future.
Councillor Woods.
Phil Woods, Fornbridge. Can I ask a question on KPI 25? I think I've asked it previously, but I can't remember what the response was.
Sorry, Councillor Woods, that's not within our remit.
I wondered that. Thanks very much. That's okay.
Councillor Sleep.
John Sleep, Totton Central. Could I ask Zach a question on fly tipping? I've looked at the statistics, and a question that you might be able to answer quite quickly. In our parish, we've got 4 big hoardings that are, every time it rains, the whole lot just gets rushed off onto the ground. There's a massive great pile of paper that's got to be picked up by our volunteer teams in Tottenham. They asked
Sorry,
me if I could
Councillor
sort
Sleep.
it.
It's not within our panel.
Oh, I thought it was.
Not under this one.
I thought it is. It's NFDC.
Oh, sorry. No, you're not. You're on 25. That's not in our panel.
Oh, I'll ask you later on then. That's that. Thank you.
Is there any further questions relevant from 36, 37 onwards? No. In which case, I'll go to the recommendations, which are on page 3. That the Resources and Transformation Overview and Scrutiny Panel consider and review the Q3 dashboard, and comments will be passed onwards consideration by the Cabinet. Agreed?
Agreed.
Thank you. Move on to item 5, which is local government reorganisation. Rebecca.
Thank you, Chairman. This morning, I thought it was a useful opportunity to talk to you a bit more about the programme itself. So a lot of activities happened over the last year in terms of preparing and agreeing the proposal for submission, responding to the government's consultation, and now as we await the decision, which is still pending, I thought it would be useful to just take you through how we've structured the programme itself, some of the activities that are happening now within that programme, and give you an update on the progress in terms of the work that's happening within the organisation to make sure that this organisation is in the best position possible, but also the wider working throughout the county. So just a reminder of the timeline. So we're coming to the end of the preparatory work. So we've structured our programme in 3 phases. So we're currently in phase 1, preparation and immediate response. We then move on to phase 2, which is readiness and pre-transition activity, and that's really from the decision until the shadow authority is established. And then from that point, we go into phase 3, which is full transition and closure. So that's the point from shadow authority to vesting day, so the first day of the new unitary. So there's a red line in the middle where we are now. So we're coming to the end of that preparatory phase and awaiting response before we can move on to phase 2. So just a summary of progress to date on the screen, and I know you've seen these slides already ahead of today. Some of this will be covered in more detail in later slides, so just a very brief run through of where we are. So we've drafted and submitted our preferred proposal. We've responded to the government's consultation. We've also established a clear governance structure, and I've got a slide that I'll cover in a bit more detail to make members a bit more familiar with those governance arrangements. We've formed a programme management office, which I know this panel has heard about before from Ingrid, to make sure that we're focusing on our priorities and that we've got an opportunity to monitor and direct our resources against those priorities. We've developed a programme with specific work streams to ensure that key milestones are met. We've also developed a programme team, so I'd like to introduce Matt Clark, who's our programme manager for LGR, to the panel. We've also got a programme support officer that's working full-time to support Matt. Matt's working across all of the work streams to support those work stream leads and bring it all together. And we're working across Hampshire and the Solent with external consultants. So external consultants are bringing all of us together to do some of the preparatory work to make sure that there's some consistency between authorities. We've agreed a programme budget, so an additional budget request went to Cabinet and Council in December, and that's very much around supporting the delivery and the resources requirements that we've set out. We've also more recently responded to the MHCLG's request to inform what will be in the structural changes order. So once we've had the decision, what will follow that is a structural changes order, which is the legal instrument to bring this into place. So we've been asked to inform what goes into that, and we've responded by the deadline to MHCLG on that with more detail. So in terms of the governance, and apologies that this is a busy slide, but it's an illustration of what we've got in place and just how much is happening. So we've got an overarching LGR board, leader of council, deputy leader, leader of the opposition, and Councillor Jeremy Heron as portfolio holder for finance sit on that board alongside various senior officers. We've then got a steering group, so this is an officer-led steering group, which is a more informal group talking about progress, but also talking about what happens next and bringing some scrutiny and some structure from an officer perspective. And where it splits is we've got an internal programme team led by Kate, with me as the lead, Matt as the programme manager and the support officer, that's dealing with New Forest's response to it. The second box on the right-hand side of the screen is the external governance that supports the external work. So what we've got in that space is a leaders oversight group, and Jill represents this council, so our leader represents us on that oversight group. We've got a project and programme board, which is all the chief execs, so Kate sits on that board, an LGR reps group, and I sit on that group with my colleagues across Hampshire. And then we've got informal unitary groups, so potential cluster groups working together. And then we've got a number of work streams, which you can see below, and these are now consistent. So we set up, when we set up our internal programme, we set up a number of work streams. KPMG, working across Hampshire, set up their governance structure with slightly different work streams. There was a lot of commonality, but we've now brought those together, so we have one set of work streams across the internal and external work. So just to touch a bit more on the internal programme, so we've got the work streams, same work stream leads for the internal work and the external work. And a lot of the original, the work in this phase is about that good housekeeping. So making sure that we're mapping our current arrangements around technology, around HR and assets, and we have a really good understanding of this council's arrangements. We're then working across those arrangements with the county. So I will talk a bit more about the arrangements that we've got with KPMG and the work that's happening there. Now, this is very much at the moment led by the enabling services, so our corporate services. And we know once we've had a decision, there will be more work to do with the frontline services. So we're starting to engage with the frontline delivery services, so housing, planning, waste, around what resources we will need and what support we will need from those teams to work across that cluster and make decisions for the future organisation. The programme board has been updated by the work streams, so the programme board has met now with 6 of the 9 work streams, I believe, and had updates from those lead officers. So in terms of the collective work, there's two separate pieces of work, both led by KPMG. So KPMG has been commissioned by the whole group to do these pieces of work. The first is around data. So what they've done is established a data hub. Southampton City Council is leading on that data hub. And that data hub will host the data for each authority. So we're working up data request forms to make sure that that data is sent to the data hub in a consistent format. And what that will enable us to do is, once we have the decision, to start working on what that future unitary looks like, having all the data for that future unitary. To support that, they've also come up with what they call a service taxonomy, and more recently we're starting to call that a service catalogue, because taxonomy was quite difficult to explain. But basically this is a map of all services that each of the authorities currently deliver. So the services delivered by any authority at whatever tier, and categorising that in a structured way that is very clear about that service delivery and the activities that happen in those spaces. The second piece of work is around preparation and implementation planning. So we've got the work streams that we've detailed. We've also set up a neighbourhood governance work stream and a customer work stream, which weren't on the original plan. And that's to make sure that we've got a good understanding of how we operate and how we'll respond to our customer and our community's interests. So they're really useful additions to those traditional work streams that we had originally. We're also doing some work around transformation and public sector reform. So we've had 2 workshops already, we've got a 3rd to come, and this is largely chief execs looking at how we can shape opportunities for transformation and public sector reform for the future unitaries. The work streams themselves are also working up risks and opportunities, and those opportunities will form part of the workshops to establish an opportunities map, so a transformation opportunities map. Just a bit of an overview of the work streams there and a description of each work stream, which I won't go into, but just to highlight that we've got lead officers in each of these work streams. So you'll see that we've got Alan representing finance, for example, Matt Wisdom representing democratic services. So this is at a really senior level. Just to give you a bit more detail on what the work streams are actually doing. So they're developing day 1 requirements. So what we'll need to have in place on day 1 for a legal, safe and operational council to operate. And the reason that we do day 1 requirements is that's our ultimate goal. That's where we need to get to. They're also then detailing the critical path and milestones of, because it's very simple to say that by day 1, all our staff will need to be transferred into that new unitary. The critical path and milestones show that there's a lot of activities to get to that point. So it's really scoping out the amount of work and when that work will need to happen to deliver that day 1 requirement. They're highlighting sort of essential must-have actions, the systems and structures that would need to be in place to support that day 1 requirement, and a lot of work on interdependencies. Technology is a big interdependency across all of the work streams. In terms of progress against that work, each of the work streams, apart from customer, which was set up a bit later, has now delivered 100% of their day 1 requirements activities. And they've completed their work stream charters as well. So at the first meeting, they all agreed to the scope of that work and included it in a work stream charter that then went through that governance structure. They're continuing to develop the milestone plans. There's only a few gaps in there now, the dependencies that I talked about and the risks and opportunities, but it's very close to completion, that piece of work. In terms of other activities, so regular partner meetings happening across the county, so the leader, the chief exec, the workstream leads, and me in my role as LGR lead for this council, regularly meeting with our counterparts at other councils. We're also now doing a collective piece of work on strategic partner requirements. We've got a small subgroup working on, for the next stage, once we have a decision, what support might we need from a strategic partner and how would we go about appointing a strategic partner collectively. And the County Council is on that subgroup and representatives from the districts and boroughs and the unitaries. So I wanted to just touch on communications and engagement because that's a really key theme that will run through the next 2 years and has been really important over the last 12 months while we've been preparing this submission. So we've got a really comprehensive communications plan. So it covers communications and engagement, and there's some really strong principles behind that plan. The plan includes how we're going to communicate with our staff, our members, our residents and our partner stakeholders. It also includes key points for regular updates for all of those groups to make sure that they're properly informed in terms of what's happening and also what will happen next and the impacts these decisions will have. I also wanted, and we didn't know at this point whether we'd have had a decision by now or not, so when I prepared these slides and submitted them, I didn't include everything I was planning to include because we didn't know if we would have a decision or not. But it's worth just highlighting the fact that we've also got a really comprehensive decision week communications plan, which details who we'll communicate with, what we'll communicate to them and when, to make sure that that cascade is appropriate and make sure the right people hear at the right time and as quickly as possible. That plan includes all staff briefings within a couple of days of that decision. It also includes all member briefings within a couple of days of that decision. Employees are one of the most important groups in all of this in terms of communications and engagement, and we have a separate employee engagement plan. It's part of the overarching communications plan, but these activities are particularly focused on staff, and that is a key priority. So this is done in a number of different ways, as you'll see on the slide, and that's through chief exec briefings, directorate briefings, we've got newsletters going out, posters, bulletins, we've also got drop-in sessions, both HR drop-in sessions and LGR drop-in sessions, so staff can come along and ask one of the senior leadership teams questions, raise concerns, explore issues in a small group setting. So all of those are available to staff. We've also set up a change programme. So on our intranet, on our staff intranet, there is a change programme that enables staff to sign up to workshops, to watch videos, to get resources on how we all navigate change. So a lot of support for staff and absolutely a priority to keep them informed. Matt, anything you want to add on communications?
Can you go back one slide? I was just going to highlight just a couple of bits for members just on that stakeholder approach, that the communications and engagement to businesses, our high contact vulnerable residents, including tenants, are all bespoke, so they're not receiving a one-size-fits-all message. That's been designed in partnership with the services so that those key messages are, really resonate and that those audiences are getting the information they need. So that was the only other thing.
So I've added an additional slide, and again, this was, so we'll circulate this slide. This won't be in your pack. And again, this was based on the fact that we didn't know if we'd have a decision or not at this stage. So I thought it would be useful to just set out the next steps once we've had a decision. So the LGA, so the Local Government Association, has pulled together an LGR toolkit. And this has come directly from that toolkit in terms of the suggested next steps between the Secretary of State's decision and receiving the structural changes order. So just to run through them very briefly, what we'll be doing is with that cluster authority and those cluster organisations, we'll be establishing a voluntary joint committee which will include councillors from all existing councils covered by that new unitary area and agree a terms of reference for that committee. We'll be communicating the outcomes, so that touches on the last piece in terms of communications and engagement. We'll start to develop the implementation plans, and the work that we've been doing in partnership with KPMG gives us the foundation for those implementation plans. Agree how transition costs will be shared to establish those new unitary organisations, and do further engagement with staff to talk about the implications, encourage their feedback, but also encourage them to be part of shaping the new organisation in terms of its culture, its values. And lastly, we will be proposing a name for the new unitary ahead of the structural changes order to influence what that structural changes order includes. That's it. I know that's quite a lot to take in, so happy to take any questions now. Also happy for any member to contact me or the programme team to go through any of this in more detail. Welcome any suggestions on keeping members well informed. The all-member briefing will include the decision itself, the implications of the decision, but also some of this background in terms of the arrangements in place. And in terms of questions for today, both Matt Wisdom and Alan are workstream leads and Matt Clark is our programme manager. Between us, we will answer as many as we can, and if we can't answer them today, we'll come back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rebecca. It's quite a comprehensive report, and I would think probably quite a headache to get that lot together. One of the things is, I think, we as councillors are obviously getting all this information. The public obviously don't need all that information, but we do need to get the general gist of the information and where it's going, because you talk to a lot of people and they don't know what's happening, when it's happening, what it means. So we just want a very simple message either on the website or when it goes out with tax bills which just come out anyway, something like that. Councillor Reid first.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Becky, thank you. Excellent report. Clearly there's a lot of thinking about, I guess you've had a hand in it. My concern is agreed budget. Who was that discussed with? Who is agreed with? We went through a budgeting round at the last council meeting, I think it was, where we agreed a budget for this year. And now we've taken on an extra chunk of work and nobody's seen, I don't know anybody who's seen what those costs are and where the money's going to come from. Also, there's tremendous amount of work there. So what's the impact on the normal day-to-day activities of all the officers working on this? So two really simple questions. Thank you.
I'm going to take the second one first, and I'm happy to touch on the first one, but Alan may also want to come in. So in terms of the resource implications, we're very conscious that this is a significant amount of work on top of the work that we're already doing. So our business as usual, but also the council's priorities in its corporate plan. So over the past year, we've done quite a lot of work in terms of revisiting those priorities, and Cabinet will have had an update on their priorities and where we're moving priorities into business as usual. But also that's one of the reasons that we've established the Programme Management Office. And that's to ensure that we've got enough resources and capacity directed at our priorities, supporting as business as usual, and being able to support this significant piece of work. That sort of touches really on the budget. So there was a report to Cabinet in November last year, went on to Council in December, that requested an additional amount into the LGR reserve to be able to support resources to do this initial piece of work and to support corporate resources over the next 2 years. So we've got more detail in terms of the budget, which I'm happy to circulate to panel members, and that budget is being regularly considered through the governance process, so the board sees that budget update. Alan, do you want to come in on that?
Thank you. I think it would be useful for people to see the budget,
Yeah,
and especially the impact on the current work streams. You know, it's time of year for rates. We've got an election to support, so a lot of people are going to be very busy, and this is a chunk of work where we haven't got enough resources, in my view.
Yeah, I'm happy to share.
Councillor Wade. Yeah, no, Councillor Wade is first.
No, just very quickly, I just want to say thank you for that incredible hard work. This is something that all the work behind the scenes won't really get picked up on by residents community some are aware from LGR, some aren't, from conversations I had last weekend. But all the work you do behind the scenes is you know, because it's not to do with wheelie bins or housing, it won't get picked up. But it's an incredible amount of work. Welcome, by the way. It's lovely to meet you, Matt. Welcome to the council. But it's an incredible amount of hard work that you have to do in existing to current roles, as Alvin points out. So it is appreciated, and they're particularly with a lot of unanswered questions until at some stage this month, unless the government delay it. So it is appreciated, thank you. And I do know that there's going to be a lot of, once we find out who our new friends are, we then can really crack on about making sure that we start on the new process. communication, while key for all residents, I would prioritise where possible ones that are existing, so you have customers but predominantly tenants and stakeholders will be key, because that is the question we've had I've had from housing tenants is what's going to happen, are they going to have a tenancy, are there any change of policy and rules, will the new authority change how they manage my housing, and unlikely, but that reassurance is going to be key, particularly within the home search panel and the booklet there. So I would prioritise that as a starting for 10. That's my feedback.
Councillor Alvin.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you very much for a very clear and comprehensive report. I mean, there's a lot of work gone into just that. I can see it. There's one point that comes out through this report that strikes me on the governance of it is the role of KPMG. Now, they're in the background there. We don't seem to have any oversight of their role. There's no report from KPMG. I think perhaps that would help. And also in terms of the budget that was raised by my fellow councillor there, I mean, how much is KPMG costing us in all this? There's obviously a big involvement on their part, so I'd be grateful for any insight on that. Thank you.
Yes, so KPMG have been commissioned by a group of partners, so 13 of the 15 authorities have commissioned KPMG. We're sharing those costs. I can share those costs with members. Part of the governance around the work of KPMG was the block on the right-hand side. So Kate represents the Programme and Project Board in that space, and that the outcomes of that work are reported to the leaders group. Again, I'm happy to do a summary of that work for members and circulate that to members.
And in terms of the cost, KPMG cost?
You're putting me on the spot, so I will come back to you with actuals, but it's a shared cost.
Thank you. Any other members' questions? No, thank you very much, Becky, for that really comprehensive report. We move on now to item 6, which is the transformation programme update, and that's over to you, Ingrid.
Thank you, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Ingrid Archer, Transformation Manager. I'm really pleased today to update you on not only our successful go live for our contact centre, but also a bit of a roundup of what's been delivered throughout this year and a look forward to what we'll be delivering through the next 12 months. And as I say, it's a really positive picture, represents an awful lot of hard work on behalf of people across the whole organisation, and I'm really proud to be able to represent that for them this morning. So I'll take you through first, if I may, our customer and digital contact centre go live. So our contact centre went live technically on 5:30 on Saturday, the 7th of February. Long day for the team, but quite a successful one. And we worked well with our partners, so we had Virgin Media supporting us in part of that and other technical support that we'd engaged with, but it was pretty seamless with teams working here on site to make sure that everything as it should have been by the end of the day. We did further testing on Sunday to make sure that changes had held in place and nothing had broken itself overnight, and we continued to see really positive progress. So it meant that Monday morning we all went live with the new system, so everyone who had formerly been using our touchpoint telephony system was now fully live in our NetCall system. We did a white glove support service for 2 days, so we were again on site in the Bradbury room, co-located, multidisciplinary team available for floor walking support and to make sure that we were rapidly triaging any tickets that were coming through from users or any issues we were seeing in customer queues. And as a result of that work, we saw very early positive progress. We've had no complaints from customers. They didn't even notice the change. Hopefully they noticed the natural language at the front end and that being slightly easier. But we immediately started to see gains. So our early performance stats, I've popped onto this slide for you. We were seeing 84% of our calls answered within 3 minutes. I think the exact timings around that was about 1 minute and 3 seconds. And a significant improvement in customer wait times. So we reduced that immediately from 1 minute 22 to 1 minute and 7, which may seem small when you look at one customer, but on the thousands of calls that we get each week, we calculated that in our first week, we saved our customers at 173 hours of waiting time in our queues. And that was just from going live with our net call. And then similarly, another issue we struggled with were having to internally transfer calls. So many times our contact centre was really just acting as a switchboard, and people were coming to the wrong place and needing transfer either outside of our organisation to another provider or within our departments. And again, we're seeing an immediate reduction in the numbers of those. That will continue to improve as we are making daily improvements to the natural language, and we're looking daily at sentiments from customers, which is a way that we can assess each of the calls to make sure that people have had a positive or neutral experience with us, both of which is something that our customers wanted to see. Again, straight away we've been able to get data from the system, so we're already able to monitor who's online and dealing with customers and where we could potentially make efficiency savings around licence numbers and use of the technology. So overall, an excellent success. And our team are working at the moment, so a few weeks to go, but a matter of weeks, on standing up our CRM system. So that's the create element of Netcall, and we're just planning that in now. It's a little more complex than the touchpoint telephony replacement because it will touch more users across the organisation. So it's really important that we're careful with our business readiness and that people feel confident and able to use that system because they will interact with it in a more in-depth way than they do currently with the call centre. So we're doing an extra piece of work with Kate Hardy to make sure that we've captured all of those teams, what they're doing at the moment and how big that gap is for them to change, and then to make sure that they're getting the right support so that it looks as successful as this first round of changes that we've introduced. I think if I just pick out the highlights of what that could provide in terms of data and also for our customers, it will give customers more access to different channels and more people. So for example, planning, they will be able to get more support on the phone and they'll have electronic channels to go through, so it will feel less manual for customers. But it will also enable us as well to get more detailed feedback from customers. So after we've spoken to them, we can send them a short survey that they can complete. And that will really start to drive some of those experiential measures around how customers are interacting with our services, which I know, of course, is a key priority for members. And alongside that, we will continue to develop Netcall. So none of this stands still at any point. The technology really provides us with the opportunity to improve it on a daily or weekly basis, and that will be all done through our customer surveys and customer feedback. And of course, as part of this, we worked with a group of 60 customer volunteers who were happy to test and help us design, and that will continue as well. So I just move on now to our customer and digital services. So in this section of slides, what I wanted to do was look back across the transformation strategy, which we revised in the latter part of last year to make sure that it was right for LGR and was reflecting the changes that we've seen as a result of that, and make sure that we were looking at the objectives that we'd set ourselves then and the measures against those objectives, which are both in the transformation strategy and across our customer strategies, and take a measure as to what activity we've delivered specifically to support those objectives and how far we've got with that. And again, I'm really pleased to say it was a great exercise for me and the team to go through, because it really did call out just how much has been delivered across all of the themes that were within the transformation strategy initially. So looking here at our customer and digital services, it was customers being at the heart of our digital by design approach. I think that's been reflected both in our procurement journey and our design and testing. including our customers in that quite closely. We would review and catalogue our data and identify the data that is most valuable to move towards LGR and ensure it's accurate, accessible, and there was a smooth transition to the unitary. Again, I'm over customer now as part of the LGR work streams, but by delivering this improved technology, we now have a clear pane of glass where we can see our customer data, see our interactions, and it's easy for us to then be monitoring trend data and seeing where we're performing well and where we could improve. And if customer contact starts to look different under LGR, what those differences are and how we need to make sure the system is keeping up with that. And then Objective C3 will invest in digital capabilities that are most likely to bring long-term benefits for customers and staff during and after LGR. And again, the systems that we've procured here have really leapfrogged us in terms of customer contact technology over many of our neighbours. And they also provide us a brilliant future roadmap for not only integration into the systems that we already have in place, but also to enable our staff operations teams to keep developing and improving the system as they're dealing with customers every day. So it's giving people access to improve their own world, and that to be linked really to the work they're doing daily with our customers. And then below there I've set out in a bit more of a segmented way specifically what work we have undertaken against each of those objectives. And I'm sure that you would agree it's been quite comprehensive this year, and that will continue to build as we go through our CRM. Moving to people and capabilities, another really strong area of delivery, and you've heard this morning from Zach some of the monitoring that goes on around recruitment and also people leaving the organisation and wanting to feel that their voices are heard, that they've got development opportunities, and that their reward and recognition is something that's properly considered, and there's parity across the way that's managed for the whole organisation. And I think Kate and her team have done a great job to move us forward on that. So here we have our P objectives relating to people, of course. So we'll ensure our values, behaviours and culture are aligned with a focus on prioritising customer needs through a period of rapid change. And then our second objective, we'll invest in our people to ensure that they have the skills they need to deliver, manage and adapt to significant organisational changes ahead. Again, if I was to pick out some highlights here, we of course have signed off our people strategy, which underpins the delivery of all of this work, where we've also worked hard to commit to our values and behaviours as an organisation and make sure people are clear on what that actually means. And we're starting to see a difference already. Ordinarily, with cultural change, it can be a journey of between 2 and 5 years for anyone to really feel the change in the organisation. But I'm pleased to say that we are seeing that more immediately through the work of Kate and her team. I think another one for me is they have launched the growth and goals. So that's a total change to the way that we were doing previously our performance management, much more people-centric. And as the name suggests, it is focused around how they want to grow in their role, how they want to grow in their career, and what their personal goals are, without applying any pressure on people. So it's very much for them to let us know how we can best support them to be successful in the future, and that really should appeal from a reward and recognition perspective as well. And then, of course, the work they've picked up for LGR more recently to make sure that we are ready to move in whichever direction, because there's still uncertainty around that, to make sure scenarios are planned for, that stakeholders, both internal and external, are segmented and we understand their needs and requirements. And that work is well developed, and they have a plan to their announcement as well. So excellent work against people and capabilities, and again we will see that continue through this year, although they've launched a significant amount of new process. I think as well, while we're still on this one, we have done some improvements to recruitment, which have been so well received by line managers. It really was a time drain on people's time, so they're more automated and smoother. Excuse me, let's go back one. Apologies. Excuse me, I'm just having a technical issue with my system. Yeah, I think do apologise, I do promise it's worth the wait.
Let me share.
I'm sure I'm presenting too. Please do.
Let me share.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you. I
please.
don't know what
Yeah.
slide to do.
Matt's going to jump in.
I'll just go back to my screen then. Apologies to members. Just a small... I think you have the papers in front of you, so I will continue, if I may, and thank you to any colleagues trying to help me at the moment to display these. So we will be on slide 6, which is assets and accommodation.
Just going to say it's all on, if they've got their computers
We're
on,
here.
it's all available on mod.com.
Great, thank you. I do apologise, I'm just having a glitch there. So these objectives are our asset objectives. So we'll prioritise operational assets so they're in the best possible condition ahead of vesting day to the new unitary authority, and we'll continue to challenge our asset portfolio to reduce environmental impact and enhance their financial contribution. Again, a large amount of work is going on around this area, so I think probably members are most familiar with the SAMP work, our Strategic Asset Management Plan, which I know has been here to this panel a number of occasions. It's moving ahead at pace. It encompasses a range of different solutions. So there is the strategy work that's going on, but there's also data and technology that's part of that plan, and they're significant portions of work. So we are supporting from our transformation and ICT teams on those elements, while the strategy and the community work is being pushed forward by the experts in that operational area. And then most recently, the LGR work of assets has been a combination of things that have been required to be developed very rapidly. It's got a set of kind of just do it, and then a longer term plan thinking about day one preparedness and moving towards what activity that might look like. And then latterly we have a new programme of work around grounds maintenance review, and that really does ensure that assets are then covered from every aspect. Again, both as part of the work we were already doing for our transformation strategy, but with a new lens on LGR. And then around our objective A2, we have enhanced asset challenge framework, which has been rolled out to support structured portfolio decisions and regeneration priorities for public conveniences. They have been identified. The grounds maintenance review is moving forward, so we'll start to report that under the PMO, and then we'll be able to bring more details to this panel as well. And then finally, the last theme that we have is our transformation, delivery and LGR readiness. Thank you. And that is, formally, we were managing the efficiency savings we were targeting for the medium-term financial plan. This has moved much more now to monitoring the work of LGR, making sure that there's alignment between the transformation strategy and delivery and the LGR programme of work, because there is so much dependency and crossover on that one, and looking more broadly if the technology and the change and the improvements around people that we are delivering are supporting our managers and our staff to make data-driven decisions, have access to the right information that they need, support their people in the right way, and that we're improving the management culture and discipline and rigour around the way that we support people, deliver change and improvement, and manage our money as well. So underneath that, I've summarised against those objectives overall how we've delivered that across our other 3 themes. And then finally, look forward to next year and what we will continue to work on. So in our customer space, the biggest change that we will see, and this is imminent, is standing up our CRM. So it means that we are working in a casework way with our customers in, it will be much more improved, the processes. It will feel slicker to them, but it also will mean that our staff and teams are much more joined up with more people interacting and working together in one system. We, of course, are bringing online our new repairs system for housing, significant integrations into our other back office systems with that. So again, it's seamless journeys for our tenants. And then we will be looking to make decisions across some of the projects that are currently paused, because we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing for the organisation as we move towards LGR, not overcommitting ourselves on technology that is complex or costly. And so we do at the moment have a couple of projects where we're just pausing to make sure we make the right decisions on those ones as well. And then in our people and leadership space, we've got a couple of quite big events next year. So our staff survey will go out again. That'll be really important to compare with the results that we had this year. And we're also running an all-staff event, which will very much be around supporting the reward and recognition that Kate and her team want to get in place this year. So I hope that members can see that we've delivered not only a huge amount this year and really move forward with those strategy objectives, but we're also absolutely clear on what we'll be delivering in the next 12 months, regardless of LGR and the additional challenge that will bring, and how that will continue to build on the improvement and transformation already delivered. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ingrid. Is there any particular questions from that? Councillor Wade.
My first question is regarding Netcall. Firstly, a phenomenal outcome there. That was really good. No one has spoken to me about Netcall in the last week, while they have about bins. So can I ask then, unless I've got this wrong, if I was, in theory, it should work if I call at 11:30 and want to talk about benefits, or the system should allow me to go through the process and allow people to call 24/7 and at any stage. And effectively manage when the customer service area is closed, if I ask the right question?
Yes, it does. So the way that is, the way the functionality for that works is we will, for the customer, they'll just say what they want, but it produces in the background a voice form. So for our operational areas, it will go through to them with the key details on, and they'll know if there's a, contact back or send them a form or whatever it is required. But that's how we're doing it at the moment. When we've stood up the CRM more, then there is potential for a little bit more self-service. So we want to push that journey a little bit further for the customer. But currently, absolutely, and it produces a voice form.
So excellent data, excellent figures, and I'm very pleased that I did ask a question of it yesterday they didn't understand, but that's because someone called me from the office and I said, responding to a query, so I found a fault. My other question is, with regards to the other report, it mentioned about the grounds maintenance team, about looking at SLAs and pricing models. And I wondered whether it's internal and external customers, if this included town and parish councils and volunteer groups, and if there is going to be an impact, or if they're looking at ways of enhancing revenue that could come from these town and parish councils already impacted by trees and bin agreements, which have impacted them a lot recently. And I'm just concerned about whether I've misinterpreted that wrong, or if that is where that's been considered.
I might need to take that away, Councillor Wade.
Yeah, I'll come in slightly on that, but yeah, we can give you a more comprehensive answer in terms of the review, the scope of the review, but it's really a fundamental review of that area to make sure that we're operating in the best way, that we're covering our costs in the best way, and that we're really modernising and joining up what we're doing in that space.
Councillor Sleep.
Can I ask, how are you making judgments on when it's best to continue with something to ensure we take stock of what our new partner authorities are doing? What systems are they using, etc.?
So with every piece of work we've done, one of the things that we've looked at as part of the discovery, so the early understanding of the system we want to either procure or work with, is if it's common to our neighbours. I mean, we'd always look at comparable councils anyway to try and understand the best solution. So it's always been part of our thinking, but obviously the focus a little more now is on that future framing, and it would be one of our considerations with procurement. Where we haven't made immediate decisions to act, it is because benefits are less clear against projects, so the benefits will be smaller or limited, less positive impact. Complexity, a requirement for key staff who are already burdened by new work coming through from LGR, and potential high costs that we would have to shoulder on our own. At those points, if we're seeing those as indicators, then we'll have the conversation around whether we'd be better partnering with someone in our cluster arrangement or having another discussion about it moving forward when things are a bit clearer. So it's a number of different factors that we would follow, and we would be disinclined to not move forward with anything that would hamper the delivery of our objectives. So we feel comfortable that the projects in the portfolio we are pushing forward do support the objectives well, and the ones we're taking on time on now, there aren't huge impact to us not delivering against the strategy.
So are you getting actual feedback comfortably from our neighbours to give you the information to know exactly how you're all going to work together? I just wondered if that was a problem.
We're working really well, so we have a number of check-ins with them. Of course, the formal KPMG, LGR work, we're all kind of getting together apart from a couple of people in that. But we also have lots of informal conversations, and we host each other. So last week we had Winchester, and it's just a chance really for us to make sure that we're sharing our knowledge and we're supporting each other as normal colleagues would. But of course, conversations can turn to what the future may hold, and I think they're important at the moment.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions on that? Yes, Councillor Woods.
I apologise for this question, but I'm not very good in the digital world, I'm afraid. On your first slide, can you explain to me what Stand Up CRM, create integration to enable full case creation, tracking and end-to-end digital journeys means?
Very happy to. So I think that's a lesson for me as well. So good feedback. So what that means is at the moment, customers can come in through one front door, one phone number, and they can tell us what they need and we can get them to the right people. When we have the case management element, what it will mean is customers will come through that front door, they can say what they need, but we can work with people in the background in a much better way. So as I just explained to Councillor Wade, at the moment, if a department was closed, then it would produce a form, and if enough of those forms were produced, the next time they come into work, you know, they could have 15, 20 sat there waiting. When we stand up the customer relationship management, which is the casework element of it, it's got more functionality. So it may be that the system itself could answer the question for the customer by saying, let me send you a link, or I can direct you to a form, or if you give me a few more details, we can get that sorted for you now. And what it will mean for the system is talking to housing, talking to our waste collection system, talking to our out-of-hours service, for example, rather than the people in those departments needing to link up. So it'll feel much smoother to the customer, and they won't feel like they're being passed off to any different areas. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's sort of artificial intelligence in action.
Yes, that's right. And you go into where you need, and you come back out with the answer, and it's not kind of this stop-start.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further? No, thank you very much, Ingrid. It's again another comprehensive report and a lot to do. Moving on now to portfolio holders. I've got our stand-in for the leader today. The privilege to have him here now.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Well, good morning, everybody. It's actually rather good to be here. This morning I've heard 3 exceptionally good and positive presentations, and on each one I've got a few comments to make. I think it's great to have... I'm not a great fan of metrics, Zach, you know that, but the trouble is you need to have metrics in order to get better, to repair. So your presentation was excellent, so thank you for that. And I think it showed a lot of positive movements. With regard to the LGR, Programme Update and LGR, what can I say? My experience is that I've seen firsthand how well the districts and boroughs are working within Hampshire together in order to come up with, ably marshalled by KPMG, I have to say. They have done an excellent job elsewhere, and they've brought their expertise to the Hampshire DCs and BCs. So what I've seen there is a great positive leap forward by the DCs and BCs. No one wants LGR, Chairman, but it's being done to us. We have no choice to make the best fist of it and to make sure that the service levels of our customers are not impaired. And I certainly agree with Councillor Wade's comments about the tenants' concerns. I get that quite a lot, quite frankly. It so much depends on the direction we're taken into. With regard to transformation, I've enjoyed working with the transformation team a couple of times, but we share the HR committee chairman, and growth and goals has had a huge impact, very positive impact on our staff and managers. Only wish it was around, that kind of scheme was around when I was a line manager. It would have saved a lot of time, a lot of paperwork. So I think it's a great scheme and it's been very positively received. So I think that's tremendous. Netcall, absolutely. Fantastic stuff. I mean, I think everyone knows the system will know that it's certainly improved the customer service levels that we can offer. I think going forward, there isn't much more to add, apart because everything's been said this morning by the three presentations. But what I can say is, bring it on. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from Councillor Davies? No. Move on to Councillor Heron then. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'll start off, as with everyone, with LGR and say that I've ordered a new crystal ball because obviously the last one didn't work. All I'm getting is fog and cloudy information from central government, which is making life difficult. I would also like to say that I know it is necessary, but I resent every single penny of the 2 million that we have put aside for LGR being spent. That's local money. I would think it could do far better if we just left alone and used it within our communities. But there we go, that is it. As for the name, it is of course going to be called the Greater New Forest Council, I'm sure. I don't know what anyone else is thinking, but it's got my vote for wherever we go and whoever we partner it with. Sat here this morning, as always, I reflect on what I'm going to tell you and what I'm going to need, and I often sit here wondering what on earth I have been so busy doing over the past period, because it completely goes blank. But I thought I would touch on a few of our projects. First of all, obviously, Queensway, the building that we bought back down in New Milton, turned out very handy during part of the bin rollout because we needed some space and we had some large open space for that. But that isn't why we bought it. We bought it to take it forward as part of our commercial enterprise. Sadly, that was nobbled by the nesting gulls, as anyone may remember, when we needed to do some work and they needed to sit down and lay an egg. Pleased to say that is actually progressing, and I'm hoping to hear that is completed any second now, that work is now completed, and then we will take that project forward. Salisbury Road, I always know that Councillor Sleep's very keen to hear how Salisbury Road is going because it is part of his history, and obviously we're just going forward with the partial roof replacement on that. Public conveniences. I know that everyone is also interested in that as part of the project, and we are at the moment looking to divide those. There will obviously be two sets, those that will be overhauled, those that will be refurbished. And we are at the moment putting together costs ready to go out for tender. There will also be quite a bit of work working out how we schedule those, because the ones in the high use area obviously don't want to be taken out of commission during the summer months. So we're looking at that. ICT, I think it is worth mentioning as we look at it. I know someone was saying that our targets of 70% were perhaps could be raised, but we always greatly exceed those. But also, actually, there is a severe increase in cyber attacks. We are really seeing an awful lot more of that sort of activity coming through. It is something that takes quite a lot of time and resource to keep our systems safe and secure, which I'm sure you're all delighted for. But I would also reiterate to members, please be sensible, be aware of it when using your own equipment, because they are always looking for the least line of resistance when trying to gain access to our accounts. And the final one is the refurbishment of the depot at Ringwood. Everyone will know, despite the fact that it's in my ward, that it has been somewhat of a poor relationship as far as depots have gone in recent years. Small delay on that because there was a change in opinion on the requirement for planning consent, but that, I'm pleased to say, is coming forward and hopefully going ahead shortly. And for that, I'll take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Heron. Any questions of Councillor Heron? No? In which case we'll move on to the work programme. Does anybody have particular comment? It's quite a full programme in June. We've looked at it and don't think we can move anything from it. So be prepared with your sandwiches before lunch. And if I've got no other business, so very kindly thank you very much and close this meeting.